Good morning. Headed up to Woodward Dream Cruise this weekend. Very excited for that. Currently in West Virginia, headed towards Michigan. It's going to be a fun day driving, but I wanted to take the opportunity to do a quick video on the top 5 mods for your S650 Mustang. We see these videos all the time, and I wanted to just put my own twist on it and take some of my experience, this being my 8th Mustang, the Dark Horse, and modifying cars and kind of offer you a quick and easy modification path for your S650 Mustang. And this goes for people who are on multiple Mustangs and this is your 3rd or 4th or 5th Mustang, or if the S650 is totally new for you, Mustang's totally new to you. And if that's the case, welcome to the world of Mustang. I'm sure you've already seen that this is one of the coolest car communities in the world. So with that said, we're going to dive right in. As you guys know, this S650 Dark Horse I'm driving is pretty, I don't want to say heavily modified, but I've got a lot of parts on here. So if you haven't had the chance, go back and look through some of the other videos, autocrosses and things like that. A couple dyno videos with Pro Dyno measuring the increases in horsepower of certain parts. A lot of good content there, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already. But kicking things off, top 5 mods, honestly in no particular order. If you're talking about 5 mods, I guess you can work through the order that works best for you, but I'm just going to list off my top 5, and honestly I've done all these 5 relatively quickly after purchasing the car. So first and foremost, probably would be exhaust. There's multiple different avenues you can go through when purchasing an exhaust system for your S650 Mustang. The most common, I would say, would be a resonator delete. So the factory exhaust system on the S650 Mustang comes with a, they call it like a suitcase resonator, it's a slang term, but a suitcase resonator. It's right, it's technically the mid pipe of the car, but a lot of people chop those out and put a resonator delete in place. You have multiple different options from basically the entire aftermarket. Everyone has their own version of an X pipe or an H pipe. There's also double X pipes, double H pipes. There's the Borla Switchfire, which has all kinds of spaghetti stuff going on. There's multiple different options. When it comes to resonator delete, you have 2 main options that everyone has. It's that X and H pipe, right? There's other variations like I mentioned, but the X and the H. The X is going to give you a more high-pitched, raspy exhaust note that's more reminiscent of these higher revving, more current generation Coyotes. It supposedly makes a little bit more power up top, and it's all negligible. It really just boils down to the kind of sound you're looking for. So higher pitched and raspy for the X pipe. The H pipe gives you that more old school muscle car kind of sound. Obviously you can't change the firing order or anything like that with the Coyote engine, so if you don't like how that sounds, you're too bad, you're stuck with it. Personally, I love the way it sounds, but it isn't an old school, like, you know, pushrod 5.0. It's a different sound. But the H pipes can get you a little bit closer to that with the Coyote, a little bit throatier down low, and instead of screaming up top, it kind of roars up top. So resonator deletes, first and foremost, your cheapest bang for the buck option with the exhaust. Especially if you have active exhaust, it is the easiest thing to slap on there that retains the active exhaust, gives you more volume all over the place, and quiet mode still does its job too. If you don't have active exhaust, it's just going to be louder. Now, if you have a little bit more budget, you can look into axle backs or cat backs. Axle back is same concept. You're grabbing the Sawzall, you're cutting off your mufflers and clamping on new mufflers and tips in place in the rear. It's a little bit more typically than the resonator delete. Some people pair the resonator delete with an axle back and kind of create your own cat back. That's also an option as well, as if you do resonator delete. You know, you have it on for a few months, 6 months, a year, you get tired of it, you want to add more, then you can add the axle back. But there's plenty of options out there. Remember, for the S650s, the active exhaust cars are quad tip. The non-active exhaust cars are single tip. A little bit different than the S550, so that's something to keep in mind when you're shopping around. And then obviously catback exhaust. That's the ideal situation, right? Where you pull off your full factory catback system, throw it in the shed, or sell it to somebody else who's looking to upgrade. If you have a Dark Horse, for example, and want to offer it to someone with a GT, and they want to pick up the Valence, the catback is the ideal solution. They have catbacks out there for non-active cars, plenty of options there. And they also have catback options for active cars. Currently on the Dark Horse, I'm running the AWE system. It's that much deeper sounding H-pipe that comes with the system, 3-inch all the way back. Picked up a few horsepower. Again, check out that video if you haven't already, but I really do like the way this thing sounds in quiet mode on the highway at, well, 65 miles an hour going through the mountains here. And it's very pleasurable, totally comfortable, no issues whatsoever. There's obviously Borla options, MBRP, MagnaFlow, some new systems, Valvetronic are coming on into the game and stuff like that. Plenty of options out there for you if you're looking to add a catback, axleback, or resonator delete to your Mustang. And moving on from exhaust would be an intake. So these are still rolling out. A lot of companies are still working on intakes, and obviously it's going to take a minute for them to actually get out to the market. Right now, for those GT owners out there, you obviously have your drop-in filter replacements. That means you pull out the paper cone filter and replace it with a more high-flow paper solution or an oiled filter solution. I put the Steeda high-flow filters on my Dark Horse, but there's K&N solutions, there's Air Raid solutions. I'm pretty sure Green Filter's coming out with one if they haven't already. So plenty of options out there if you're just looking to get a couple more horsepower. I picked up 3 horsepower with these filters and have a little bit more flow and a little bit more induction noise too, which is cool. Then there's obviously a full intake solution, and that right now is kind of K&N is pretty much the only one. And there's a few other brands that are going to be coming out with cold air intakes here in the near future. There's one thing to keep in mind when you are shopping around for intakes, whether this is your first Mustang or your 10th purchasing intakes in the past for Mustangs, $300 or $400 usually, somewhere in that range. With the new Gen 4 Coyote, it was a big talking point. Twin throttle bodies, twin intakes, 2 air boxes. You're going to be paying for 2 intakes if you're looking to add a cold air intakes to your S650 Mustang. So instead of that $300 to $400 range, you're probably going to be looking at $600 to $800 for a good cold air intake system that you're able to gain a few horsepower from, and obviously have the aesthetic aspect as well when you pop the hood at a car show. It is going to be interesting to see what happens down the road. These new intakes are going to be coming to market as companies get their tooling in order and get their orders in. But then eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed, tuning is going to be added, right? Someone's going to figure it out. They're going to be able to start tuning these cars. That means all the intakes that are coming on the market right now are no tune required, right? They're going to have that. They're going to be up to the maximum allowed diameter for that intake tube, that the mass airflow sensor doesn't go crazy, and you're going to be limited by that, right? But then once tuning comes out, that's going to change the game again, because then all of these companies that are offering intakes now are going to have to go back to the drawing board and get new revised tooling and offer larger intake tubes to allow for those revised maps, you know, once you can upload a tune to the car. So these are all things to keep in mind in your modification path for your S650 Mustang. If you want it right now, there's no tune required, and you're good to go, drop it in. But if down the road you want to tune, sure, you'll be able to tune and get some more horsepower, but if you want to make the most of that tune, you're going to want to pick up an intake that has a larger diameter on both sides. You can suck in more air and take full advantage of the ability to tune the car. Next up, aesthetics. Aesthetics are fun, right? My favorite thing to talk about when it comes to Mustang. Again, this is my 8th Mustang. I love Mustangs. I've modified pretty much every single one I've had. The best part about Mustang is that Ford designs and engineers these cars as a blank slate, right? It is a canvas. You grab your paintbrush and you make the car your own. Whether it's adding an exhaust or intakes or whatever, or spoilers or louvers or different types of wheels or anything like that. So when it comes to aesthetics, the market is still evolving. The aftermarket is still evolving, right? It is a new car that is going to require new types of parts. So typically, I point people to start with a front splitter or chin spoiler and a rear spoiler. Those are typically the two main places I instruct people to start. There's other options, right? For GT and Dark Horse owners, you have the option to swap out hood vents. There's multiple carbon fiber options hitting the market as we speak. There's also the RTR hood vent, which I'm running on my Dark Horse right now. Hood vents are great, something that's unique to the S650 that you can customize. If you don't like the gloss black and want it to match the grills a little bit more, or just jump all completely over to carbon fiber, that's an option for you. The front splitter, there's plenty of options there as well. RTR is probably the most notable one, but NYTOP, I believe, is another carbon fiber option. Their stuff is matte carbon fiber. Plenty of options out there to upgrade your front splitter. And then rear spoiler, there's gurney flap options, right? That goes on the back of your spoiler if you have a GT. There's full carbon fiber options. There's some S650 style spoilers out there that are like GT500, S650 GT500 style spoiler that you can put on the back of this thing. So there's multiple different options for spoilers, and obviously the best part is you get to pick one that fits your taste, right? Okay, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? All right, I gotta wait in line and pay a toll. That's fun. In terms of aesthetics, you also want to add in other carbon fiber options, right? I have been having fun with carbon fiber on this car. Right now I've been working with Function Factory Performance. They're coming out with a whole slew of carbon fiber parts for 2024 Mustang. And right now I did the eyelids, or whatever you want to call them, the eyeshadow underneath the Dark Horse, on the Dark Horse front fascia underneath the headlights. I also did the fins, as well as the chin spoiler and the gurney flap out back. So that's all been converted to carbon fiber. It looks freaking awesome. I love the way it looks. So keep your eyes peeled, as I'll be adding even more carbon fiber to this car as time goes on, slowly converting all the plastic parts to carbon. Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you very much. So aesthetically, there's a lot you can do. Another thing I added on the car pretty quickly after picking it up, just living in the South, right? I'm in Charlotte now, but I was in Georgia before. Window tint. Make sure you go and get the ceramic, get the good stuff. It sounds like a gimmick, but if you're at a good tint shop that does a great job and selling you the right stuff for your needs, they probably have the tint with the heat lamp behind it, and you can stick your hand in front of the tint and feel how much heat gets through. It sounds gimmicky, but you know, there is quite a reduction in heat that, you know, gets inside the car when you're driving. When you're driving down the road and the sun's beating down on the side of the car, you know, like it is right now on my arm, the tint is going to block that heat from coming in, and it's just kind of nice. So all kinds of aesthetic things you could do to your car. Just make it yours. That's the best part about having a Mustang and being part of this community. With such a large aftermarket, get the part that fits you. And if you can't afford it right now, that's totally fine. Save up and get what you want. Baby steps, work your way to it. That's how I did it growing up in my first few Mustangs, still doing it today. It's just a lot of fun, really cool stuff. So, in addition, number 4, suspension. Now, I personally love the look of a lowered Mustang, and at first, you know, as I was younger, it was all about the look, and now it's about the look and the performance. You get the all-in-one 4-min function. Nobody likes a car that, yeah, sure, looks great lowered. You pay all this money for a nice new Mustang, S650 Mustang, and you get the wrong set of springs, or you don't get the proper shocks, or whatever you do wrong. Looks great, but drives like a buckboard. You don't want that, right? Pay all this money for a car, you want it to ride and drive correctly. So there's plenty of options out there. All you got to do is surf the sites. I'm running the Steeda MagneRide dual rate springs because that's a more performance-oriented spring for these cars. I do a lot of autocross and road racing and things like that. It doesn't really beat you up on the street, which is great too. But there's plenty of options out there. Ford Performance aftermarket springs, you know, even white line BMR, IBOC, plenty of options out there to suit whatever you're trying to do with the car, whether it's drag racing you do, or just cruising down the street, or some fun back roads, autocross road racing. If you have any questions on what kind of suspension you should pick up for your Mustang, don't hesitate to comment below. I do read the comments and answer them, so happy to help out there. But yeah, big fan of it. Pick up lowering springs. Depending on your application, you may want to pick up a set of shocks and struts to go along with it. I have Magna-Ride, so I didn't have to do that. But depending on what you're trying to do with the car, it just may be smart to go ahead and do the shocks and struts as well. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're adding springs, you also want to make sure you add camber bolts or camber plates. Camber plates are always recommended over camber bolts. I really don't recommend camber bolts to anybody that is looking to do any type of performance driving with their car. That means off the street. And that's frankly because there's a little bit of a safety concern with the camber bolts, because you are taking a little bit of the strength away from that bolt, that strut to spindle bolt, by adding camber adjustment there, since it is an oblong bolt, and that's how you turn it and adjust the camber of the car. Also, camber plates, because of the adjustment point, give you more clearance for wider wheels and tires. So there's lots of benefits to paying a little bit extra to get the camber plates. But at the end of the day, you need to do something, because if you add lowering springs to the car, you are changing the suspension geometry of your S650 Mustang, which is good and all if you want it lowered. But you're going to need to be able to align the car so you don't just blaze through tires by not being able to get in alignment, because you can only adjust toe up front. You can't adjust camber from the factory unless you do have a Dark Horse handling pack car with those adjustable strut mounts from the factory. So something to keep in mind. These are all parts that you should be getting if you get lowering springs. A lot of people do sell just lowering springs alone, but just make sure you do your homework and get the parts to go along with it to complete the package. So when you do finally lower the jack and put the car on the ground and take it for a test drive, you're going to be happy with the results. And last but not least, you almost could do 4 and 5 together or interchangeably, but wheels. Wheels is number 5. And I personally don't like putting a set of wheels on my car when it's stock ride height. It's just, it kind of completes the package, right? You lower the car, the factory wheels are usually tucked in, right? Because the factory offsets are a little bit more conservative. But then you add this set of wheels on there, and on a lowered car, it just looks so freaking minty. I love it. I love it. So I have a couple different sets of wheels for this car. The Belgian VF10 is what I'm running on right now, going up to Woodward. That's my street setup. It's 20 by 10 up front, 20 by 11 in the rear, with a 275/35/20 up front and a 315/35/20 in the rear. I do plan to switch this up in the future, so stay tuned to see what wheels I put on this car next. But that's the street setup. For the track setup, I have Belgian VF5s. They are in bronze. They look really, really good. Thankfully, they're awful similar to the color of brake dust. Being track wheels is a good thing. But those are 19 by 11 square with a 52 offset, and I run a 1-inch spacer up front so I can rotate and get a little bit more tire life out of the 295/35 Yokohama Advan AO52s. So that was a lot of word vomit there, but I hope that was helpful. The wheels in of themselves really just make the car, and it's one of those statement pieces that just really help your car stand out from the rest. The Mustang is a popular car. A lot of people have them, and when you go to these Mustang events like Mustang Week in September or Sturgis Mustang Rally or wherever you are located in the country, you want to be able to stand out, right? You want your car to stand out against the other Mustangs out there. So just keep that in mind. There's 3 different types of wheels you can look at when you're purchasing a set of wheels for your Mustang. And by types, I mean construction, wheel construction. You have cast wheels, you have flow form wheels, and you have forged wheels. And in that order, right? So cast is typically the cheapest stuff. Companies out there buy them in bulk. They're the wheel deal specials you see for anywhere from $100 to $200 a wheel. Needless to say, you get what you pay for there. There are good cast wheels. Some OE manufacturers they still use cast wheels. That's totally fine. But for aftermarket, I just recommend against it nowadays. And that's simply because Flowform has gotten cheap enough to get your hands on that it's just pay a little bit more, get the quality. But cast wheels, you hit a pothole back in the day, 10 years ago, there was most widely cast wheels were available, and you'd hit a pothole and you not only would mess up your tire, you'd mess up your wheel, and you're really on the side of the road. So just something to keep in mind. I wouldn't go for the wheel deal specials. Take a little bit more time, save a little bit more money, and go for the Flowform. The Flowform wheels is the middle of the road approach. It's the best bang for the buck, and the cool part is when it comes to manufacturing Flowform wheels, it's become cost effective enough for a lot of the wheel manufacturers out there to offer a ton of different styles, a ton of different colors and finishes, a ton of different sizes. So there's plenty of options out there. LMR's SVE, pretty much their full lineup, I believe, is Flowform. A lot of American Muscles wheels are all Flowform now. CJ's has plenty of Flowform wheels available. Steed has Flowform wheels. I mean, Flowform's the way to go if you're looking for best bang for the buck. Both the Velgen VF5 and the Velgen VF10 that I'm running on this car are Flowform wheels. So I can't stress that enough. It's your best bang for the buck. Just go that route. Thank me later. And then forged wheels. That's the money stuff. That's the it's CNC, you know, built aluminum, forged. I mean, the construction's bar none the best you can possibly get. It's the same stuff, same wheel construction, same type of wheel construction they use for motorsports and actual, like, legitimate motorsports racing. It's high-end stuff. And in terms of pricing, cast, you're at that like $100 to $150, $200 a wheel. Flowform, you're anywhere from $350 to $600 per wheel. Forged, the sky's the limit. Anywhere from $3,000 for a set of wheels all the way up to 8 to 10 grand plus. And they're typically one-offs. Some of them have them on the shelves, but forged is where you can get super custom. You can add different, you know, 2-piece, 3-piece wheels with different types of hardware. And personally, I've never owned a set of forged wheels. I've always been interested in them. They're really cool. I just can never justify spending that kind of money on a set of wheels. That's why I've always kind of leaned more towards Flowform. So there's your wheel education. I hope this video was worth it for you. If you picked up your S650 Mustang and you're sitting there with a stock car in your garage and you're already trying to figure out where to go and what to get for that car to help make it your own and stand apart from the rest, that's, again, the best part about having a Mustang in this community is the blank canvas that is your Mustang. It's really cool. So comment below and let me know what parts you plan to pick up for your S650 Mustang. If you have any questions, this is a lot of information I threw at you today. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. If you're interested in this content and you want to see more, whether it's the S650 Mustang, Ford news, autocross, road racing, events, anything, you name it, please subscribe. Would love to have you on board. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on rolling here, get up to Woodward Dream Cruise. Stay tuned for more content on that, and we'll see you next time.